Hello, hello. This is Orit Krug, and this is Mind Your Body. Welcome back, listeners. I am so excited to share with you today this interview that I did with a former client of my Let Love In program, Corrie. She worked with my top level embodiment coach, Sarah, who is a dance movement psychotherapist in the UK. And Corrie was just hugely inspiring to witness her transformation from the sidelines, even though I wasn't in the process with them. What actually inspired me is a video I'll share with you in the podcast notes. But there's a video that she shared with the group of her being outside in the snow, dancing to a Frozen song, looking just so full of life and happy. And it was so amazing. So you got to check that video out if you feel inspired. And I was just going to interview Corrie to add to my testimonial videos. And what I usually do is I cut down a conversation from anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes down to like under 5 minutes, just so it's easy to consume on social media these days. But Corrie brought in such a unique perspective as a social worker that I thought it was really important to just share the whole raw, uncut interview with you all. Because she has experienced this transformation in her body and nervous system, not just as a beautiful human with herself and her husband and her daughter, but also so much in the work that she does with children who have experienced trauma, who are still going through trauma. So I was like, this would be perfect for the podcast to share that piece professionally. So I will stop talking and allow you to listen to Corrie's amazing story. This is Mind Your Body, a dance movement therapy perspective on the integration of our emotional, cognitive, physical, and spiritual aspects of our being into one more aware and whole existence. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with the first question. What was your life like before you joined the Let Love In program? Like, if you could paint us a picture of your day to day, and we'll start with that.
Yeah. So before Let Love In, I guess the way I would reflect is that my baseline was like a 7. Like I would start the day already kind of, amped up. There was always this constant like hum, right? And so my window of tolerance or my threshold, something as simple as a glass getting spilled over, right? Or the wrong look, especially at home. So I feel like I would go throughout the day at work and kind of push it all in and hold it all in and keep my composure and kind of, I do trauma work, so be an emotional container for difficult kids and difficult situations in my professional world. And then I would come home and it would all come out. And so it was this vicious cycle, I guess, of like knowing what I needed to do, understanding and anticipating where these issues would come up, but not being able to connect in my body to change my behavior in those moments. And so it became just very dismal in a lot of ways, like just this feeling of like, I can't fix this. I know, and I should be able to. One of like the negative self-talk like that I would hear in my head very often was, like social worker by day and psycho by night, like that was how I felt about it. Like, I know what I should do, but I just can't do it. And so, especially in my most intimate relationships with my child and my husband. And so I think that caused it to be very, challenging for me to feel like this would even be possible. I don't think I really knew what felt safety in my own body was. And, I did about 4 years of talk therapy prior. And I love my therapist. She's wonderful. But being in the profession that I am, it was almost like I felt like I was having coffee with a girlfriend. Like I knew what to say, right? So I would go to therapy and we'd have these conversations, and then I'd come home and I'd be like, well, shit, I did it again, And so it was just kind of this vicious cycle of going back and forth and going back and forth, and really like having this understanding of what it is that I need to change, but not having the ability to do so in my body.
Yeah, thanks for painting that very, like, that description that I feel like, especially people who are in your position, social work or mental health work, can really resonate, I'm sure. So you said that when you would come home and in the intimate relationships with your child and husband, what exactly was going on there? Like what were the behaviors that you were seeing yourself do, and how is that affecting your relationships with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, again, just that window of tolerance, like something simple, like a mess or, not following through for my child. Like if I would ask her to do something and she wouldn't do it, I mean, it would almost be instant that my brain would flip. And so then I'd be, out of control and upset and not, able to self-regulate. And so now the difference is like, I feel so different in my body. Like there's a calm that I did not have before this experience. And I have the ability now to access that in these situations. And so I have both parts now. I know what's happening. I can understand and see it coming. And when I, I'm in the moment, I can harness, my own ability, my own calm in that moment to again self-regulate, and that was my struggle in the past, is being able to do that. And so then it would create all these other struggles, right? So like my husband would be walking on eggshells because the living room would be a mess and my kid would have all her toys out, and so he's anxious because he's like, oh, mom's going to get home and she's going to be upset because the toys are. And so it was just this, I mean, it was a ripple effect throughout, of course, our whole entire household. And the difference I'm seeing now is like, and this is a question I have for you as well, Orit, is like, now that I've done this work and I know I have to keep doing this work because life keeps happening, our experiences keep happening, you have to keep staying open and doing that. And I'm all for that. But that moment of awareness for me of like, I'm seeing my child and my husband respond, and I'm responding differently, and their brains are flipping and they're still going into that place of like, mama's going to get mad. Right. Or she, and so like, just being able to, how do we help our families? And I think that's that, intergenerational piece of this, of like, I also think about my own immediate family, my mom and my sisters. Like we get in these spaces, and again, we can talk all day long about the things that have happened and how we react and respond to one another. But until we can have true felt safety and like hold that in our physical bodies with one another, that's, I guess, a big question for me, is like, now that I've done this work, like, how do I, and again, being mindful, because that was another huge thing I got from this experience of boundaries. Like I was constantly, for all of these years in my adult life, throwing myself, well, my whole life since my childhood, throwing myself into helping others. And so I think what I found as well, and Sarah got us, I don't even have the words to express my gratitude for Sarah and the safety that she created in our group, and the beauty of the vulnerability in the other women that participated. And just, I don't even have words to describe that experience of just the ability for everyone to hold one another. But, I learned a lot about so much of my anger, and the group reflected this back to me. And Sarah, in one session, it was just this like major aha moment for me of like, it's not anger, it's sadness. It's deep, deep sadness and grief, and it's coming out as anger. And so until I had that release through the love-in process and experience, like it would just be like the bear would come out, right? And really, it was this really sad, scared, heartbroken little girl who for all these years had all of these deeply, deeply heartbreaking and sad experiences, but I just pushed them in and I held them. And so being able to release that allowed me to finally, and it was painful. I mean, the experience of going through some of the process There were a couple days where I was like, I don't know, I think I'm going to just lay on the floor today because I need like a full body ice pack and I'm not sure that I can move. So physically, but trusting and allowing myself to go through that. Because again, I think we push away from the pain. We feel pain and we drink or we eat or we spend or we take a pill or whatever we do to make it go away rather than listening to it and allowing it to move through our body and releasing it. And so, yeah, just so many lessons from this experience and
I'm
so
hearing
much
so
gratitude.
much. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much gratitude.
And I feel like I can feel your emotion and see, wow, like how much you did, how much you did with the group and how much was released and moved for you. Um, and thank you for sharing that. I especially love your perspective as, again, I said this before, but as a social worker, because I'm hearing you preach and you're like, yes, like this is what it needed. And this is what we need. And I'm all about that movement too. I wanted to go back to something you said, and I'm going to try to remember what it was. Um, Oh, you had said you had a question of like, so your husband and your child right now, they're still expecting you to, right, to like explode or react. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to get to that, but I first wanted to I wanted to ask if you're okay with answering this question. Um, Before you joined the program, did you have a sense of it's that not them, but like my husband who needs to change or it's yeah, even my child, like my child needs to behave better and my husband needs to like respect my needs more. Did you have that kind of sense like it was them who needed to change?
Absolutely. And I think that, it was reinforced by those around me as well. Like, and so, um, especially within my relationship with my husband and I, like now I'm like, oh wait, no, I do love, like, you were, I think, so we've been together 8 years and through the experience of the relationship, you experience challenges and things like this, right? And you're going to talk therapy and you're thinking you're going to do it right, but when your nervous system is still getting hijacked in the moment. So we both knew these things and then would be in these moments where we're both doing the thing that we didn't want to do. So to your question, absolutely. I mean, before this and even throughout the process, the questions kept coming up of like, you know, and I spent hours probably a day in my head thinking about like my life without, like if I just could get away, if I wasn't in this relationship, then it will be better. Like, and because I just can't be in relationship and
Mhm.
yeah, and I'm doing all this work and he's not doing any work. I mean, just hours of spent like with those kinds of thoughts. Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah. And how do you feel now?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was how do I don't even know the words. Like there's this I feel rooted. Like I feel safe and um I feel at peace, versus this swirling and this constant conflict and questioning. Um,
Mhm.
and I feel safe and secure, and that was not the case.
Yeah. Wow. What a difference.
hmm And I think that's how can you, right? We talk about this all the time, and you just posted this again in the group, but like how can you hear that like you have to love yourself before you love anyone else, or and you have to be open um, and take care of yourself first. And, we know all these things, but it's like until you really, and I guess I'm doing this because like until you can really like feel it in your body,
Mm.
it's just words. And that was my experience is so much of this was just words. And I spent so much of my life in my head. Um, and so when you can actually feel it in your body and then connect the two things, it just changes everything. And there's no way to do it without this because otherwise it's just words.
Right. Right. So like having it integrated and felt in your body was the thing that like just turned it all around for you or like all of the knowledge that you already had as a person and as a professional is like finally what's the word? I don't want to put a word on it for you, but like,
it was finally home.
mm-hmm.
Like it was finally home. And I, again, and that returning to self and being able to be there, one time I went to a silent retreat for an extended weekend, and it was wonderful, but it was also like, I just remember being like, I'm not woo woo enough, or I'm not like, I can't do, like, I couldn't physically just, I don't know how to, I couldn't, my system was constantly going like this. And so because of that, because of where my nervous system was at like this, deep breathing and mindfulness and yoga and all these things were just like, it just was actually painful in the fact that and then that negative self-talk afterwards, because it's another failure and you just can't do it. And so I think this whole experience has also expanded my, already deep empathy for the kids and the families I work with. I work with families all the time who have not had any of this training or exposure to this information. And we're asking them to change, again, generations of their experiences and how their systems have been hardwired and are being hijacked. And so just whether it be in the school setting with the kid who is acting out and, everyone's trying to fix them, and knowing the time and the resources and the energy and all of this. And the fact that the biggest part of this to me is missing. It's not even part of the conversation in those situations. We're not talking about this. And so we're really, again, re-traumatizing and setting people up for failure by our interventions and our offers of help and support and healing. And it's packaged up to do something that it can't, without this, again, without the integration that has to happen.
The integration of the body and the nervous system.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That is a good point. Actually, I'll just ask you, I was just going to say, this would be a really good episode for my podcast, but we can talk about that after the recording. So I'm coming back to you and your relationship with yourself. I know you describe this peace, this access to peace and this ability to, be in your body, be home. Was there anything else very significant that you want to name in shifting the relationship with yourself? How do you feel about yourself today?
It's so different. Again, it doesn't matter how many cards I bought myself or coffee mugs or blank, again, this again, but it goes from words to feeling, actually it being embodied, the feeling of self-love, versus just again, words that we throw around. It's a feeling of deep safety and love and compassion and grace and forgiveness and understanding and compassion. Again, a lot of those things that I was doling out, right? But wasn't taken in. And so knowing now that I have that ability and can turn it inward and yeah.
Yeah, it's almost hard to describe.
Words mess it up,
Yeah.
And that's how I lived my whole life before this. And now I'm I need less words and more movement. And that was another major aha of just that I spent so much time talking about things before, trying to figure it out, right? And just how much power and knowing our bodies have. And so when you spend all this time up here and you disconnect, and that was my experience. When I started, my first reflection was I can't get my breath below, it's stuck in my throat, and it felt like concrete in my body, from my shoulders down. And so when we first started our first session, that was my initial reflection with Sarah, was no, I can't get my breath. It usually goes right here. And then it's I'm constantly holding my breath and I'm all like this all the time, going through life like this.
Yeah.
And So being able to release and then move that concrete and to make room and the opening and using movement to do that, and then to be able to step into my power, um, it's just, yeah, no words. Words just mess it up, I think.
Yeah, it takes away the body part of it, I guess. It's just, yeah, the process is so deeply nonverbal that it's just, I have the same issue when I try to tell people about the program. I'm like, I can try to tell you about it in as many words as I can, but like there's no way I could describe it to you in a way that actually does it justice.
No way. Not does it justice, but also takes into consideration the uniqueness of each individual person's experience and journey, because that's, I could describe it, and then for the other two individuals in our group, it could sound and look very differently to them. But
Absolutely.
it's funny, in trying to explain it to others, like I have shared some of my videos with some of the movement videos I've done, and so it's hilarious because I have my one sister was like, she's like, so like, did they teach you this and then you practiced it and then you videoed, like, like, was there choreography? Like, how did this work? And I'm like, no. And my outside video, my Frozen video that I did, that was literally just like, we were home on Christmas vacation and I was like, I feel called to move. I think I want to go outside. I think I want to dance to that Frozen song. And I just like went outside and put my phone on and stuck the music on and did it. Like, and it was just from my heart and from my following my body. And so we were dying because my sister was like, oh my God, you were like Elsa. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't practice it. Like, and so I think it's that, again, I like, really, what does this mean? And yeah. So
yeah, I mean, what I hear in that is you just followed your impulse to do something and express yourself and be in your body, and like that, all that mind chatter and resistance that you were usually used to wasn't there. Like that's the really cool thing. It's just it's very like inner child spirit kind of thing. Like I'm just gonna go outside and dance in the snow, right?
yeah,
Yeah, and express myself. And yeah, oh my God, that video is amazing.
it
I
was
know.
fun.
Yeah. Cool. So, and I want to get back to, I want to answer your question afterwards about like what happens when your family's still expecting you to react. But before we get to that, I want to ask you what's like, can you paint us a picture now of your relationship with your husband? Like, I know that it sounds like he's still expecting you to react, but has there some, let me try to word that again. Has something shifted other than that?
Absolutely. I think there's this, like, I see him. I see him again. Instead of this, scary version that I have painted, right? Like, that's cleared. And there's clarity, and I can see him. And I can see all of the things that he does every single day that are his expressions of love and devotion. And I couldn't see that. All I could see and all I focused on were the flaws. Um, and so I can see that now. I can see that
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. What difference? What do you feel in the moment of saying that? I mean, I can see your tears.
I have hope. And I know that there's still, I mean, right now with our world, like, I mean, just like everything, like, it's like with the whole, COVID, everything we've got going on. But I have this, like, this excitement and this joy about our relationship. And yeah, and I believe in the ability for us to continue and to continue to do this work. I think, one of the big reflections I've had too is, again, this, you hear this, but like, just how we're sold this version of life, right? Like, just be a good girl, do these things, all these things, the shoulds, right? And so you go through this experience of like, well, I did all those things, right? Like I did these things and I got my degree and I met the guy and we got married and we got the house and the kid and now it's just all supposed to like, woo, right?
Yeah.
and we stop there. Like nobody, like, where's the guidance about like, then shit really gets real. Like that's, like
Yeah.
that's when you really need like the guidance beyond the wedding planning like like you need the guidance about the
Now
real
life is real.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And then I'm like, should I answer your question now? I'll just answer your question now before I ask you the last question I think I want to ask you. So what happens a lot of times in specifically this work where we are working with the women of the relationship, whether it's, a relationship with another woman or a relationship with a man, we are specifically working with the women in a relationship who have this unresolved trauma and have gone through many years of reacting and shutting down and these patterns of pushing away their partner. And so what happens when we're in relationship with anybody is that we co-regulate together. So like if you're calm, I'm going to be calm. And I'm sure you know this from not only your family, but your work with your clients as well. But if I'm like throwing a fit, it's either going to create a heightened response or heightened fear in the person you're relationship with. So if you're always coming home and like, oh, there's such a mess, like, right, your husband's probably, and your child is probably waiting like, oh no, like it's messy, and she's gonna be really, really upset. And so like they're already on guard and their nervous systems and fear centers are already heightened. And just like you spent this amazing time in the program working on yourself and adapting, rewiring your nervous system, having those days of rest, right, where you're like, I just need to relax, right? You've had all this time and dedication to do that work. And now, you just have to allow that to happen with them too. They're going to co-regulate with you. They're going to rewire and adapt with you. It's just going to take some time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
And that was like my thought, but then it's like, so then and kind of in the group too, my questions of like, I think sometimes I try to overcomplicate it. Like I wanted to know how to just like get rid of this thing. Like what's the move to just get rid of this? Or, so like, is there a thing that I'm supposed to do other than just being still and trusting and continuing to do the work? So thank you.
Yeah. That was a question. I was like, well, what has worked for you in this program that you made such amazing transformation? You're like, oh yeah, I'll just keep doing that. Yeah, I know. It's like, it's almost too simple. It's annoying, but it's so profound, right? So yeah, last question for you is, what would you say to someone who is thinking about doing this program, but is kind of on the edge and feeling scared and not sure?
If you're here, you're supposed to be here, and trust that, and just trust your knowing. And it is possible. I still to this day have to be like, wait, is this, wait. Like, no, it is real. And it is possible, and you can do it. And you're worth it, and you deserve it. And life's too short. So don't wait, get it done. Do it now.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And so I'm like hearing you speaking to the woman who feels broken, like, wow, great, like your story sounds amazing, but me, like I couldn't that couldn't be me. I've tried so much. I've been there. I've done all the things, all the fancy little things, and said all the words, bought all the mugs, right? But me, I can't. Is that the kind of person you're talking to?
Absolutely. And again, it'll just be words until you do it. And yeah, and so then you'll look back on the videos, and that's kind of was my experience. I looked back and was like, wait, because it was still this, it was with outside of my reach, right? I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, but it's gonna be like everything else, in the back of my head, even though I was saying like, no, this is gonna be it. Like, I'm like, that's still there, right? That message is still there. And so you don't know until you do it. But if you're here, that's what you're supposed to be doing, and trust that, because that's your body and it's smart. She knows, and she's brought you here for a reason. So trust her.
Yeah. And when you say here, because you were in this place, right? Like you didn't quite know the realm of what you were about to enter to, but you were still stuck out there, but you like wanted to be in there, right? In this different realm of being in your body and processing the trauma through movement and all that. So what helped you finally cross that, like go into it, leap into it?
Well, honestly, I mean, again, for me, I think it was the culmination of all of these things that I had gone through. And for me, it was the unexpected pregnancy and the experience of making a decision for myself that was not easy. But for probably the first time in my life, actually feeling in my body what the decision needed to be for me and for myself, and trusting that, as difficult as it was. And so being in a place of rawness from that experience, I wanted to understand that better. And I wanted to be able to harness that and to be able to access that, so that it didn't take me, again, to these places where I had lost myself or gone so far away from myself, to then have to be able to do that whenever I needed to. And small decisions about, should I have another cup of coffee this morning?
Right. Should I have another cup of coffee? Should I have another kid? Like as small or big as it is, right?
Yes, it's always there, and it's all ever present, and we can call on her at any time. But we live lives where we're constantly looking outside ourselves, and all we have to do is come back. And so again, this was a scary place for me for such a long time. There was lots of stuff and noise and feelings and vibrations and things that didn't feel comfortable. And so going through this process has allowed me to know now that this is the safest place. And
this being your body.
Yes, this being my body is the safest place and the truest place. And just sometimes, it doesn't move as fast. The answers don't come as fast as I want them. But if we're still and we listen, we'll know.
Still or moving, right? Moving in within. I think I understand what you're trying to say.
And I guess, yeah, I mean, still versus, for me, always seeking outside externally, right? Or to others, or, listening to others, or trying to talk it out to figure it out. I think, all those things have their places, but stillness in the body and trusting that.
Yeah.
Which could be through movement. Yes.
Outside in the snow on Christmas. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Corrie. This was really, really helpful, and I appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for doing the work that you do and sharing your story with all of us, and inspiring, encouraging all of us to do this work. It's again, there's no words to express my gratitude for what you do. And in your journey in motherhood, it's just, there's no words for that either. And so I think of you and I hold you in my heart, because it just like, it knocks you on your butt, man. She's going to be 6. And I'm like, okay, wait, I'm finally coming up for air. So there's no words for that.
You did it. Like you started it and you did it. And so that's really good. Like, give that back to yourself, because you did something so courageous and stuck with it, and now you're here.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.